Today we're going to follow up the Pythagorean theorem with the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So we learned yesterday that the Pythagorean theorem states that if a triangle is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And remember, the a and the b are your two legs, and the c is the hypotenuse. The converse of the Pythagorean theorem states that if a squared plus b squared plus c squared equals c squared, then the triangle is a right triangle. So all we've done here is we've flipped, it's a right triangle, right? If it is, then that's true. Our converse states that if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then our triangle is a right triangle. So to test the converse, we're going to see if our a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then we'll know if it makes a right triangle. So right here I have 3, 4, and then my hypotenuse is 5. So remember, we need to do 3 squared is 9. And I'm going to show my work here because I don't have room to show you on a separate sheet of paper. 9 plus 4 squared is 16 is equal to 25. Is that true? Well, 9 plus 16, that's 25. So 25 equals 25. True, yes. And does that make a right triangle? Yes, it does. Okay, now we're going to work on this one. We have two legs, 5 and 12, and then a hypotenuse of 13. So 5 squared, 25, plus our 12 squared of 144. Is that equal to 169? So let's add up 25 and 144. 9, 6. That is true. That is 169 equals 169. Yes. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we do have a right triangle. Next one here. I have 7 squared is 49 plus 24 squared is 576. And remember, to square, we're just multiplying, right? And that equals 25 squared. Well, let's see if that's true. 625. So add these up. 49 plus 576. 15, 8, 12. Yep, 625. That is true. So it does make a right triangle. All right, next I have 8 squared plus 15 squared. Does that equal 17 squared? All right, so 8 squared is going to give me my 64 plus 15 squared. You're going to be calculating these. That's 225 equals 17 squared is 289. All right, let's add these up. There's 9, 8, 289. That is true. So we do have a right triangle. All right, the next one, we have 20 squared plus 21 squared. Does that equal 29 squared? All right, so 20 squared is 400. 21 squared is 441. And 29 squared is 841. Add these up. 1, 4, 8. 841, that is true. We have another right triangle. I'm going to show you the work on these. So how do I identify a right triangle? So in my example here, I have 9 inches, 40 inches, and 41 inches. We're going to find out if that is a right triangle. So I have A equals 9, B equals 40, and C equals 41. Remember that your longest length is going to be your hypotenuse. So we're going to use our formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Input our 9 squared, 40 squared. Does that equal 41 squared? 9 squared is 81, 40 squared is 1600, and 41 squared is 1681. Add 81 plus 1600, and we get 1681 equals 1681. That is true. We have a right triangle. Okay, our second example here, we have a triangle with measurements of 8 meters, 10 meters, and 12 meters. All right, we're going to have A equal 8, B equal 10, and C is 12 meters. We're going to substitute our values. 8 is our A, so 8 squared. B is 10, so 10 squared. And C is 12, so 12 squared. 8 squared is 64. 10 squared is 100. And 12 squared is 144. 164, when we add those up, does not equal 144. So this is not true or false, and it is not going to be a right triangle then. The one other thing I want to talk to before I go on to some practice is, it does not matter on your two legs. If I would have put B is 8 and A is 10, it does not matter. It will not change that left side of my A squared plus B squared. The most important thing is to remember that your longest length is your hypotenuse, and that does matter. So just be careful when labeling those. All right. The first ones I want you to work are 2, 3, 4, and 5. It says, tell whether each triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle. So you're going to go 2, here's our 3, 4, and 5. Go ahead and answer each of those. All right, I am not going to do the math on these. So if you got any of these wrong, you need to contact me so we can make sure that we're doing our math correctly. So number 2 is not a right triangle. And I'm going to abbreviate triangle that. Number 3, that is a right triangle. Number 4, that's a right triangle. And then 5, that one was not a right triangle. Okay, let's go on to the next section here. And 6 states, a blueprint for a new triangular playground shows that the sides measure 480 feet, 140 feet, and 500 feet. Is the playground in the shape of a right triangle? And then it says to explain. All right, so hopefully you've answered that correctly. We're going to find out. So here's our 2 legs, because 500 is the longest, so that's the hypotenuse. So we've got 480 squared plus 140 squared equals 500 squared. And when we do the math on that, all right, so let's do 480 squared. That is 230,400 plus, all right, 140 squared is 19,600. And then let's look at our 500 squared. 500 squared is 250,000. So let's add 230,000 or 230,400 plus 19,600. And look at there, we get 250,000. So that is true. We have a right triangle because of all that math there. All right, number 7. Go ahead and answer this. I'll read it for you. A triangular piece of glass has sides that measure 18, 19, and 25 inches. Is the piece of glass in the shape of a right triangle? So go ahead and answer that. Is that in the shape of a right triangle? All right, so we should have noticed that 25 is our longest length, so that's going to be our hypotenuse. So we have 18 squared plus 19 squared equals 25 squared. And then we need to square each of those, right? And when I square 18, I find that that equals 324. 324. When I square 19, that equals 361. And then 25 squared is 625. So now we need to add our 324 plus 361, and we find that that equals, this right here is 681, which does not equal 625. So no, that is not in the shape of a right triangle because the math doesn't work, right? Number 8. A corner of a fenced yard forms a right triangle. Can you place a 12-foot long board across the corner to form a right triangle for which the leg lengths are whole numbers? All right, so we're talking about, draw a picture of this. They want to know if this can be 12. So what we're trying to figure out here is if I can put a number here and here, where we can add up to 12 squared. So can we do a squared plus b squared equals 12 squared, which is 144? And this is going to be trial and error. You're going to be putting in numbers here. You're going to start with 2 and 2. That's going to be, no. 3 and 4. Like, just go through and try those. Okay. You should have found that no, there are no pairs of whole numbers whose squares, so like 3 squared and 4 squared, add to 144 or that 12 squared. Okay. All right, this last section here I want you to work on. I just need you to tell me whether each triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle. All right, so for each of these, you need to tell me whether the triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle or not. So go ahead, 5 through 14, and answer each of those. And you're going to just test them to see if a squared plus b squared equals c squared is true. All right, is number 5 a right triangle? Yes, it is. Number 6, is that a right triangle? No. Number 7, is this a right triangle? No. Number 8, is this a right triangle? Yes, it is. Number 9, is that a right triangle? No. Number 10, is that a right triangle? Yes, it is. All right, number 11, is that a right triangle? Yes, it is. Number 12, is that a right triangle? Yes, it is. Number 13, is that a right triangle? No, it is not. And then last one, number 14. And I want you to be careful here. Which one of those is your hypotenuse before you test that? Remember, well, your hypotenuse is going to be your longest length. All right, so hopefully you came up with 25 as your hypotenuse, and this is not a right triangle. All right, I hope you did really good on this, really well. If you have any questions, please contact me, come to my meeting. I will be there from 1 to 4. Have a great day.